Ruwa, Zimbabwe, September 1994. The air of a Friday morning vibrates with the universal energy of childhood. Laughter, shouts, and the sound of running feet in the playground of the Ariel School, a private institution nestled just a few miles from the vibrant capital, Harare. It's the soundtrack of normalcy in a young African nation still breathing the air of a newly won independence. Everything seems ordinary, peaceful, until a different sound tears through the air. A sharp cry, not of play. It's a sound of pure astonishment, of a confrontation with the impossible. Followed by another, and then another. Panic blossoms where joy once was. On that day, September 16th, recess at the Ariel School would be interrupted by an event that would forever mark the lives of 62 children and become one of the most extraordinary and well-documented cases in world ufology. This is a widely known case, explored in documentaries and books. And our mission here is not to compete with those major productions. It is to delve into the echoes that still linger, because we know that every story, no matter how often it's told, still holds details in the shadows. Many of you may have never delved into the details of this enigma. And that is what we will do today. We will assemble the central pieces of this puzzle, revisiting the facts, the witnesses, and the doubts that even after decades still hang over the skies of Zimbabwe. To understand the tension of that morning, we need to go back in time, just 48 hours. On the night of Wednesday, September 14th, the sky over southern Africa transformed into a cosmic stage. Thousands of people in Zimbabwe and also in the neighboring countries of Zambia and Botswana witnessed what was widely reported as a spectacular meteor shower. But amidst the phenomenon, dissonant accounts emerged. Witnesses described something more, not just falling trails of light, but a singular object, a bright, circular light in front, followed by a tail of dazzling lights in shades of green and orange. Unlike a meteor, it moved slowly, silently, and in a controlled manner over the houses, even changing direction sharply before disappearing. While the official explanation would point to the re-entry of a Russian Zenit 2 rocket, for many, the sky that night was already seeded with a question: were we being watched? That fireball in the sky, real and undeniable, may have been the opening act for the drama that was about to unfold. We return to the morning of September 16th, around 10:15 a.m. At the Ariel School, the teachers were in a meeting. In the playground, children of various nationalities were playing. The only adult nearby, Allison Kirkman, was in the tuck shop, absorbed in her work. It was then that the sky once again drew their attention. 5 spherical silver objects tore across the blue. They moved at high speed, flashing beams of light, disappearing at one point, only to reappear instantly at another. An impossible aerial ballet. On the third pass, one of the objects changed its pattern.
It began to descend towards the edge of the school grounds, an area of dense brush and thorny bushes, separated from the playground by a dirt track for tractors. The object, described as a flattened saucer with portholes around it, landed gently about 100 yards from the playground. Curiosity overcame fear. A group of children approached the fence, and that's where they saw it. Standing on top of the craft was a small being. It descended and took a few steps towards them, coming, according to some, within an arm's length. It was a little over 3 feet tall, with a slender body covered in a tight, shiny black suit, or perhaps it was its own skin. It had a thin neck, minimal facial features, and a kind of band or long hair on its head. But it was its eyes that paralyzed the children. Black, immense, oval, and slanted. Eyes that didn't just seem to see, but to see through them.
The being made no sound. Its communication was deeper, more direct. Several children reported that as they met the creature's gaze, their minds were flooded with thoughts that were not their own. One of the girls would later describe, "The thoughts came from the man's eyes." The message was clear and urgent, a wave of concern about the fate of planet Earth. The children understood that humanity was destroying its own home through pollution and the irresponsible use of technology, that we shouldn't become so technological. For some of them, the message was accompanied by terrifying visions, images of a dark future, a world devastated by our own negligence. The spell was broken. Panic erupted. The younger children, terrified, began to cry hysterically, screaming about the Tokoloshe, a mythical creature from local folklore. The older ones ran towards the tuck shop, trying to explain the unexplainable to Allison Kirkman, who, thinking it was just a game, didn't leave her post. Inside the meeting room, Headmaster Colin Mackey heard screams louder than usual, but didn't imagine the nature of what was happening. When the meeting ended, they found a playground in an uproar. Mackey, an experienced educator, realized there was something different here. The consistency, the genuine fear in their eyes. He made a decision that would prove crucial. He asked the children to return to their classrooms and, separately, draw what they had seen. The result was astonishing. Over 60 drawings were produced. Although the styles varied, the essence was the same. A disc-shaped object and a small crew member with giant black eyes. It was the first tangible evidence of an extraordinary collective memory. The news exploded. Headmaster Mackey, under pressure from parents, sought the help of Cynthia Hind, a respected local UFO investigator. Cynthia went to the school, interviewed the children, and examined the landing site with a Geiger counter and a magnetometer, but found no anomalies. The only evidence was the story, recorded in their minds and on paper by 62 witnesses. The case, however, crossed the ocean. It reached the ears of Dr. John E. Mack, a prominent name, a professor of psychiatry at Harvard and a Pulitzer Prize winner. Intrigued, Mack traveled to Zimbabwe 2 months later. He spent weeks on site,
conducting in-depth, filmed interviews with 12 of the children. His conclusion, coming from a world authority in psychiatry, was a bombshell. The children were not lying, nor were they suffering from mass hysteria. They had experienced an intense and real encounter. The assertion cost Mack dearly. The Harvard administration, uncomfortable, opened an internal investigation into his conduct. Outraged, Mack declared it was the first time a tenured Harvard professor had been subjected to such an inquiry for their research. Ironically, the controversy attracted funders who helped him create his own research center. Tragically, Mack passed away in 2004, leaving behind a legacy of academic courage.
Such an extraordinary event without physical proof inevitably attracts skepticism. The first hypothesis points to the Ariel phenomenon that occurred 2 days earlier. The re-entry of the Russian rocket could have created a UFO climate, a psychological predisposition in the children to interpret any unusual stimulus. Others suggest a classic case of social contagion or mass hysteria, especially in an environment without adult supervision. Critics of Dr. Mack argue that his interviews may have inserted or reinforced the environmental message. And more recently, the Netflix series Encounters brought a new controversy. A former student claimed, without independent verification, that it all started as a prank that got out of hand, an allegation disputed by dozens of other witnesses.
The years passed. The children of Ariel grew up and scattered across the world. But distance and time have not erased the memory of that day. When sought out as adults, their stories remain unshakably the same. In the words of one witness, "That face will never leave my mind. It was the most incredible experience of our lives. I know what I saw." A filmmaker who investigated the case for over a decade tells a revealing story. He initially dismissed the report, thinking impossible that such a massive event wasn't world famous. Years later, upon finally seeing Mack's interviews with the children, he was shocked by their authenticity. He said, "If they were actors, they couldn't have done such a good job. To convey the reality of that moment, they are all consistent in the story, and they are all clearly still shaken." His own partner, a skeptic, upon seeing the tapes, said, "My God, these children are not lying." This is the power of human testimony that sustains this case. The dust has settled in Ruwa, but the echo of that encounter reverberates to this day, forcing us to confront fundamental questions. Does the truth of an event lie only in physical proof, or does the indelible mark on the consciousness of 62 people constitute evidence of another nature? If a message about our future was indeed delivered, why choose as messengers those who held no power to change the world? Or is it that children are in fact the only ones who could receive it without the filters of cynicism and fear that paralyze adults? What does this story tell us about the nature of memory, perception, and the extraordinary human capacity to witness the impossible? The truth about what landed at Ariel remains shrouded in mystery. But the truth of what those 62 children felt and still feel is etched in their eyes, and it is a truth that invites us to look up and at the same time to look within ourselves. Now, we want to hear your voice in this dialogue. For those who are discovering the Ariel case for the first time through this video, what was your initial impression? What struck you most about this story? And for those who already knew of this enigma, is there any detail, any particularity that you know of that we didn't mention here? Your perspective could illuminate a new angle for all of us. Your contribution in the comments enriches the exploration and helps our entire community get closer to the complexity of these phenomena. If this analysis of the case added value and made you question things, leaving a like on the video will help YouTube understand the content's relevance and more people will be reached. It's also an encouragement to the channel that we should continue on this path of exploration. And if you're new here and have felt the call of the unknown, consider subscribing. Our crew is always open to more explorers of the unknown.